Welcome back to the Behavior Code. I'm Maria.
And I'm Gabriel. And Maria, let me ask you something. Have you ever had one of those days where you get home, you sit on the couch, and you just feel completely wiped? Like you haven't run a marathon, you haven't done, a ton of physical labor, but you are just bone tired.
Oh, 100%. It's that weird feeling where your body isn't sore, but your mind or your spirit or whatever you want to call it just feels heavy, like you're dragging something invisible behind you all day.
Exactly. Dragging something invisible. That's the perfect way to put it. And I think so many of us feel that way, and we just kind of brush it off. We think, oh, I'm just tired, or I need more coffee. But what if it's not about sleep? What if it's not about caffeine?
Right. What if it's something deeper? That's what we're talking about today, isn't it?
It is. Today on the Behavior Code, we're diving deep into why you feel emotionally drained. We're going to uncover the hidden leaks that are sapping your mental and emotional energy, day in and day out.
Absolutely. We're not just talking about being tired. We're talking about a fundamental loss of energy that can affect your work, your relationships, your health, everything. It's a silent epidemic of exhaustion. And more importantly, we're going to talk about how to patch those leaks and get your energy back. So stick around. You might just find the reason you've been feeling so exhausted.
All right, so let's start with the basics. What even is emotional exhaustion? I think we all kind of intuitively know what it is, but it's hard to pin down.
Yeah, totally. I think of it like this. Physical fatigue is when your muscles are tired. You go for a run, your legs are sore, makes sense. But emotional fatigue is when your capacity to feel, to care, to engage is just depleted.
Your capacity to feel. Wow, yeah. It's like your emotional well has run dry, you know? You want to be there for a friend who's having a hard time, but you have nothing left to give.
Exactly. Or you know you should feel happy about good news, but all you feel is numb or flat. It's not sadness, it's just a lack of feeling, a kind of emotional silence.
And it's so insidious because it doesn't show up on a medical scan. You can't, point to a part of your body and say, this is where the emotional exhaustion is. It's this pervasive, all over feeling of being overloaded and shut down at the same time.
Overloaded and shut down. That's a great way to describe it. I often think of it like a smartphone battery. You start the day at 100%, every little thing you do, every text you answer, every decision you make, every time you have to regulate your emotions, it takes a little bit of battery. It's like having a computer with a powerful processor but no RAM. You have the ability to do things, but no working memory, no bandwidth to actually execute them. You just stare at the screen, frozen.
Yeah.
But some apps, some activities are super draining. They take like 20% of your battery in one go, and you might not even realize it. Physical exertion is obvious. You know running a 5K is gonna drain you. But these emotional drains, they're like those apps running in the background, secretly eating up all your power.
Oh, I love that analogy, the background apps, because that's exactly what it feels like. You look at your phone or, yourself, and you're at 10% battery and you think, how did that happen? I haven't even done anything. And what's worse, many of us have forgotten what it feels like to be at 100%. We're so used to operating at 30 or 40% that we think it's normal. We've forgotten that we're designed to feel vibrant, engaged, and full of life.
Right? But you have. You've been processing, worrying, managing perceptions, holding back what you really want to say, all that invisible stuff. That's the work. That's the drain. It's a scary thought that we can get so used to feeling drained that we accept it as our baseline. It's like we've forgotten the feeling of being fully charged. We live in this perpetual low battery mode and trick ourselves into thinking it's just how adulthood is supposed to feel.
So, I guess the mission for this episode is to find those background apps, to identify them so we can finally close them down and stop them from draining our battery. And I think a key difference is recovery time. If you're physically tired, a good night's sleep or a rest day usually fixes it. But with emotional exhaustion, you can sleep for 10 hours and wake up feeling just as drained, if not more so, because the source of the fatigue isn't physical, it's mental and emotional.
Exactly. And I think the first one, and this is a huge one for so many people, is people pleasing.
Oh boy, yeah, let's get into that. The disease to please.
It really is, and it sounds so nice, right? People pleasing. You're just trying to be a good person, be helpful, be liked. What could be wrong with that? But the cost is enormous.
The cost is your own energy because you're constantly monitoring other people's reactions. You're trying to anticipate their needs, shape your behavior to match what you think they want. I mean, that is an exhausting full time job.
It's like being a social chameleon, but changing your colors all the time takes a massive amount of energy. Think about it in practical terms. Your boss asks you to take on an extra project. You're already swamped, you're stressed, but you say, of course, because you don't want them to think you're not a team player.
Right. Or a friend invites you out and you're desperate for a quiet night in, but you say, sounds fun, because you're afraid of missing out or like offending them. FOMO is a huge driver of this.
Totally. And in that moment, you say yes, and there's this tiny, brief relief because you've avoided conflict. You've made someone happy. But then this dread sinks in because now you have to do the thing you don't have the time or energy for. And it often comes from a deep-seated belief that our worth is conditional, that we have to earn love and acceptance by being agreeable and helpful. We're afraid that if we say no, people will reject us, so we abandon ourselves to avoid being abandoned by others.
And that disconnect, that gap between what you're doing on the outside and what you're feeling on the inside, that is a massive energy drain. It's cognitive dissonance, right? You're holding two opposing ideas. I don't want to do this, and I am doing this. And your brain has to work overtime to manage that conflict.
Work overtime, it really does. And it's not just the big yeses, it's the small stuff too. Agreeing with an opinion you don't actually share just to keep the peace. Laughing at a joke you didn't find funny. Constantly saying no problem when actually it is kind of a problem. And over time, this erodes your sense of self. You start to lose touch with what you actually want and need because you're so focused on what everyone else wants and needs. You become a stranger to yourself, and that is a profoundly lonely and draining experience.
Each one of those little acts of self betrayal is like a tiny pinprick in your emotional fuel tank. It might not seem like much at the time, but over the course of a day, a week, a year, you're left running on empty.
Running on empty, and you don't even know why, which actually leads us really nicely into the second hidden cause, which is unprocessed emotions.
Yes, the stuff we bottle up. This the big one. So, when you're people pleasing, you're generating a lot of feelings you can't express. Resentment, frustration, feeling overwhelmed.
Right. And where do those feelings go? They don't just disappear. You have to actively push them down. You tell yourself, I shouldn't feel this way, or just ignore it.
And that act of suppressing, of bottling it up, takes a phenomenal amount of energy. Imagine trying to hold the beach ball underwater. You can do it, but you have to constantly apply pressure. The second you let up, boom, it shoots to the surface.
That is the perfect metaphor. You're spending all this background energy just keeping things contained. Whether it's anger from a fight with your partner you never resolved, or grief you never let yourself feel, or just the daily accumulation of micro frustrations.
Yeah, micro frustrations. I mean, we're taught, especially in a professional setting, to be, unflappable, to not show negative emotion. So something annoying happens at work and you just smile and say, it's fine. But inside, you're simmering, and that simmering burns fuel. It's like carrying a backpack, and every time you feel an emotion you don't want to deal with, you put a little stone in it. One stone is nothing, but after a year of adding stones every single day, you're carrying 100 pounds of rock on your back. No wonder you're exhausted just walking up the stairs.
A lot of fuel. And then what happens is because you're using so much energy to hold that beach ball down, you have less energy for everything else. You're more irritable. Small things set you off. Someone cuts you off in traffic and you explode. But it's not about the traffic. It's about that unprocessed anger from 3 days ago.
Exactly, the beach ball finally pops up. And it often pops up in these, really inconvenient or inappropriate ways. Because emotions are just energy. They need to go somewhere. And if you don't give them a healthy outlet, they will find an unhealthy one.
That's so true. It's like a debt that you keep deferring. You think you're getting away with not paying it, but the interest is compounding every single day, and that interest is your emotional energy.
The emotional interest, yeah. You're paying for it with your focus, your patience, your joy. You're just leaking energy, trying to keep the past contained. And eventually, that debt gets called in. It can manifest as anxiety, depression, or even physical illness. The body keeps the score. And the energy it takes to constantly suppress our true feelings is a debt that will eventually come due.
Which, when you think about it that way, it's no wonder we're tired. And this ties right into our third cause, which is being in toxic environments. Because those environments, they generate a ton of emotions that we then feel we have to suppress.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you're working in a place with a bullying boss or gossipy coworkers, or just like an insane level of pressure, you're basically in a constant state of low grade fight or flight.
Yeah, you're constantly on edge. You walk into the office and your shoulders tense up. You're scanning for threats. I mean, that's what your nervous system is doing. That is biologically exhausting. You're not designed to be in that state for 8 hours a day.
Not at all. Your body is pumping out cortisol, adrenaline, it's preparing for a battle that never comes. So you just sit at your desk marinating in stress hormones. And that will absolutely drain your battery faster than almost anything else.
And it's not just workplaces, right? It can be relationships. A friendship where you're always walking on eggshells, or a partner who is consistently critical or emotionally unavailable. And sometimes it's not even overt toxicity. It can be a culture of passive aggression or a place where there's no recognition or appreciation. You're constantly putting out effort and getting nothing back, which is another form of emotional drain. It's like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in it.
Totally. That dynamic where you feel like you have to constantly perform or prove your worth. Or you have a friend who only ever talks about their own problems and never asks about you. You leave every conversation feeling less than, emptied out.
Yes, the energy vampire friend. We all know one. It's like you're plugging your phone into a faulty charger that actually drains the battery instead of filling it up.
That's a great image. It's so true, and even social circles or online spaces can be toxic. If your social media feed is just a constant stream of outrage and comparison, you're absorbing that. It's seeping into your system even if you don't consciously realize it. And we have to be honest with ourselves about who those people are. It can be painful to admit that a long-term friend or even a family member is a consistent drain. But ignoring that reality doesn't change it. It just means you keep showing up to be drained over and over again.
The cost of admission to these environments is that you have to dull your own light. You have to shrink yourself to fit in. And that constant self-monitoring, that feeling of not being safe to be your authentic self, that is profoundly draining.
Profoundly. And often we get so used to it, we don't even notice. We just think, this is how work is, or this is just how my family is. We accept the drain as normal.
Which is so sad. And it brings us to another huge internal energy drain. Hidden cause number 4, overthinking.
The hamster wheel in the brain, the one that never ever stops.
Never. And your brain, I mean, it's an organ. It uses energy. It uses about 20% of your body's total energy, which is wild. And when you're overthinking, you're basically redlining your brain's engine for no reason.
Cognitive fatigue is a real thing. It's when you replay a conversation from yesterday over and over again, or you worry about a presentation that's 2 weeks away, running through every possible worst-case scenario.
Oh, the what ifs? That's my specialty. What if I say the wrong thing? What if they don't like my idea? What if I fail? Each one of those thoughts is like opening a new tab on your computer. Pretty soon you've got 50 tabs open, your fan is whirring like crazy, and everything is slow and laggy. It's basically a form of self-inflicted anxiety. You're putting your mind through the stress of a negative event that hasn't even happened and likely never will. but your nervous system doesn't know the difference. It experiences that worry as a real threat, and it gets exhausted from being in a constant state of alert.
That is such a good analogy. And you're not actually solving anything. That's the key difference between overthinking and problem solving. Problem solving moves forward. Overthinking or rumination just goes in circles. It's spinning your wheels in the mud. Lots of effort, lots of noise, no progress.
And all you get is covered in mud and tired. So tired. It's that mental exhaustion that feels so much deeper than physical tiredness. It's when you can't even decide what to have for dinner because your decision-making circuits are just fried.
Decision fatigue. Yep, it's a direct result of that overthinking. You spend all your mental energy on hypothetical problems, so when a real simple one comes along, like what's for dinner, you have nothing left in the tank. It's analysis paralysis. You get so caught up in weighing every single option and potential outcome that you can't make a choice at all. This applies to big life decisions, but also to small, everyday things. The mental energy spent is completely out of proportion to the importance of the decision.
And these mental loops, they're often fueled by the other things we've talked about. You're overthinking a conversation because you're a people pleaser and you're worried you offended someone. Or you're ruminating on something your boss said because you're in a toxic environment. It's all connected.
It's a vicious cycle. They all feed each other. Which brings us to cause number 5, which is almost like the master key to all of this: a lack of boundaries.
Yes, this is the big one because boundaries are what protect your energy. They're like the fence around your property. Without them, anyone can just wander in, dump their trash, and wander out, and you're left to clean up the mess.
I like that. And people get boundaries wrong, I think. They think it's about being mean or selfish or about building walls. But it's not. It's just knowing where you end and someone else begins. It's about what you will and won't accept.
Exactly. A lack of boundaries is what allows people pleasing to run wild. It's why you say yes when you mean no. A boundary would be, I'd love to help, but I don't have the capacity for that right now. And the beautiful thing about boundaries is that they're not just for other people, they're for you. They're a message to yourself that your energy, your time, and your well being are valuable and worthy of protection. It's a fundamental act of self care.
And it's what lets toxic environments fester. A boundary could be not answering work emails after 6 p.m., or telling a friend, I can't talk about this topic with you anymore because it always ends in an argument.
It's also about protecting yourself from taking on other people's unprocessed emotions. When someone just dumps all their anxiety or anger onto you and you absorb it like a sponge. A boundary is recognizing this is their feeling, not mine. I can be compassionate without taking it on.
That's a really advanced move, but so crucial. Without that boundary, you become this emotional dumping ground for everyone around you. And then you wonder why you're so exhausted and carrying all this weight that isn't even yours. Practical way to think about this is imagining a permeable shield around yourself. You can let empathy and connection flow out, but you don't have to let their raw, unprocessed emotions flow in. You can listen, you can support, but you don't have to carry it for them. That's their work to do.
Right. So when we don't have these clear, healthy boundaries, we're basically leaving the doors and windows of our house wide open, and our energy, our peace, our time, it just gets taken. That is the fast track to burnout.
No question. So let's recap these 5 hidden causes. We've got people-pleasing, unprocessed emotions, toxic environments, overthinking, and a lack of boundaries. I mean, it's a minefield out there.
It really is. So how does someone listening right now, how do they know if they're just, regular life is hard tired versus genuinely emotionally drained? What are the signs?
That's a great question. I think one of the biggest signs is irritability, just having a really short fuse. You snap at your partner, you get annoyed by your kids, you just have no patience for anything.
Oh, that's a huge one. It's like your emotional shock absorbers are completely worn out. Every little bump in the road feels like a massive jolt.
Exactly. Another one is that feeling of numbness or detachment we mentioned earlier. It's like you're watching your life from a distance. Things that used to make you happy or excited just don't. There's a meh about everything.
Yeah, a lack of motivation is tied to that. You know you need to go to the gym or work on a project or even just do the dishes, but it feels like climbing Mount Everest. The get up and go has got up and gone. That's a classic sign of burnout, actually. It's called anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure. It's a protective mechanism. Your system is so overloaded that it just shuts down the circuits for joy and excitement to conserve energy. It's a red flag that you're running on fumes.
Really has. And it can manifest physically too. You might get more headaches, have trouble sleeping even though you're exhausted, or feel just generally run down, like you're always on the verge of getting sick.
Totally. And wanting to isolate yourself is another big one. The idea of making small talk at a party feels impossible. You just want to be alone because being around people, even people you love, feels like it takes too much energy.
If you're nodding along to a few of these, chances are you're dealing with some significant emotional drain. But the good news is, this is not a permanent state. You can recover. You can recharge that battery. So, you've got this constellation of symptoms: irritability, numbness, lack of motivation, physical ailments, and social withdrawal. It's your mind and body screaming at you, I have no more energy to give. Please stop.
Yes, let's get to the good stuff. How do we fix it? What are the first steps to recovery?
Okay, so the first step, and this is maybe counterintuitive, is to stop. Just stop. You have to stop the bleeding before you can heal. This means you have to get ruthless about identifying what's draining you and creating some space from it.
I love that. It might mean taking a weekend where you make zero social plans, just unapologetic solitude to let your nervous system calm down. No obligations, just you.
Exactly. And in that space, you can start to process some of those bottled up emotions. Journaling is incredible for this. Just a brain dump. Write down everything you're feeling without judgment. I'm angry about this. I'm sad about that. Get it out of your body and onto the page.
It's like finally letting that beach ball come to the surface. It can be intense, but it's such a relief. And then you have to start practicing the art of saying no.
The sacred no. Start small. Say no to one tiny thing you don't want to do. It feels scary at first because you're breaking that people-pleasing pattern. But then you realize the world doesn't end. The person is probably fine. And you get a little piece of your energy back. It's empowering.
So empowering. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And that's you beginning to build those boundaries we were talking about. You're putting up a small piece of that fence.
And also, you need to find things that actively recharge you. And this is personal for everyone. For some people, it's being in nature. For others, it's listening to music or cooking or taking a bath. You need to find your charging port and plug yourself in. And when you do say no, you don't need a long, elaborate excuse. A simple, thank you for thinking of me, but I can't, is enough. You're not required to justify your need to protect your energy. No is a complete sentence.
Right, and it's not about being productive. It's about doing something just for the joy of it, with no goal other than to feel good. That's a huge shift for overthinkers and people pleasers.
It is. So that's the immediate recovery. But how do we, rebuild our emotional energy for the long term so we're not constantly hitting 0%?
Okay, this is about building sustainable habits, and the foundation of everything, and it's so boring but so true, is sleep. You cannot be emotionally resilient if you are sleep deprived. Your brain literally cleans itself when you sleep. It processes emotions. It's non-negotiable.
So true. It's the ultimate reset button. Beyond that, I think it's about connecting to a sense of purpose. When you feel like what you're doing matters, whether it's your job or a hobby or volunteering, it generates energy. It's a why that helps you endure the how.
I love that. Purpose is like a renewable energy source. And a huge part of this is curating your relationships. As you get healthier, you'll start to notice which people in your life energize you and which ones drain you. And you have to choose to invest more time in the energizing ones.
That can be a really hard process. It might mean letting some friendships fade. But your energy is your most precious resource. You have to be a bit of a bodyguard for it. You can't let just anyone have access.
Be a bodyguard for your energy. I'm writing that down. It's also about building a practice of self-compassion, learning to talk to yourself like a friend, especially when you mess up. That cuts down on the overthinking and the internal critic that drains so much power. And the beautiful flip side of this is that when you spend time with people who genuinely fill you up, it's incredibly healing. Laughter, genuine connection, feeling seen and understood. Those are some of the most powerful ways to recharge your emotional battery.
Instead of, I can't believe I said that stupid thing, it's, okay, that wasn't my best moment, but I'm human. I'll try to do better next time. The energy difference between those two internal statements is massive.
It's night and day. One is a leak, the other is a patch. And over time, as you practice these things, setting boundaries, processing feelings, curating your circle, you're not just patching leaks. You're actually upgrading your whole operating system. You're building a bigger battery.
A bigger battery. I love that. So you can handle more, not because you're forcing yourself to, but because you actually have the capacity. You're not starting every day at 50% anymore.
Exactly. And that is a powerful place to be. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We really have. So as we wrap up, if there's one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation about emotional drain, what would it be?
I think for me, it's that your exhaustion is not a moral failing. It's not because you're weak or lazy. It's a signal. It's a dashboard warning light telling you that there's a leak somewhere. And your only job is to get curious and gently, compassionately find the source.
That's beautiful. Your exhaustion is a signal, not a weakness. So the call to action this week is just that. Take 5 minutes, sit quietly, and ask yourself, where am I leaking energy? Don't judge the answer. Just listen. That's the first step.
Thank you for tuning in to the Behavior Code. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe so you don't miss our next one. We'd also love it if you'd leave a review. It helps other people find the show.
Be kind to yourself this week, and remember to check your emotional battery level. I'm Gabriel.
And I'm Maria. We'll talk to you next time. Upbeat outro music fades in.